Hello, we are live. Good afternoon. We hope that you are well, and thank you for joining us today for this webinar on Southern Silver Exploration Corporation. My name is Jake Wilby, and I'm Vice President of Research and Analyst at Red Cloud Securities Incorporated. Joining me remotely today are Lawrence Page, President, and Robert McDonald, Vice President of Exploration at Southern Silver. We'll begin today's webinar with a presentation from Southern Silver, followed by a question and answer period. As a reminder, you can type in your questions at any time, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. Before we begin, I'll go over the disclosures for this webinar. For Southern Silver Exploration Corporation, there may be some forward-looking statements made in this webinar, and I would direct listeners to the cautionary notes on page 2 of the company's corporate presentation, located on their website. For Red Cloud Securities Incorporated, I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered solicitation to purchase or sell securities or recommendation to buy or sell securities. Also, we would note that this webinar does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investing. Company-specific disclosures for Red Cloud are as follows. In the last 12 months preceding the date of issuance of the research report or recommendation, Red Cloud Securities Incorporated has performed investment banking services and has been retained under a service or advisory agreement by the entity. Also, in the last 12 months, a partner, director, or officer of Red Cloud Securities Incorporated or the analyst involved in preparation of the research report has received compensation for investment banking services from the issue. And now I'm very happy to introduce to you Lawrence Page and Robert McDonald of Southern Silver.
Good morning, good afternoon, and thanks very much for listening to us. We're in Vancouver. I'm the president of the company. The property we're going to speak about today is Cerro Las Minnitas, which is located in Durango, Mexico. Rob McDonald has been with the project since the beginning, and he'll tell you where we are and where we're going. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the corporate background and the transaction that we're underway right now with our joint venture partner. It might be useful for me to give a little bit of background, and so I'll spend the next 2 or 3 minutes just talking about the genesis of Southern Silver Exploration Corporation and why we're presenting to you today. I own a company called Mannix Resource Group, located in Vancouver. It looks after the fortunes of 4 reporting issuers, which are exploring in North America. The idea of that is simply to put more money on the ground to provide all the services that companies need on a cost-efficient basis, and it's worked very well. About 10 years ago, we had a payday in the group, and that was a company called Western Silver Corporation, which started as a penny dreadful and ended up giving the shareholders a $1.2 billion payday when its Penasquito property was acquired by Glamis Gold and then ultimately by Gold Corp. We thought we would utilize the same infrastructure in Mexico, see if we could find a property that had legs and see if we could emulate that success. I believe that we're well on our way to doing that. We're going to talk about the Southern Silver Company today. Just by way of background, we were able to acquire a group of claims in Durango, Mexico, which were a series of old mines on the Cerro Las Minnitas property, which is just outside of Durango, Mexico. Over time, we put money into the ground. We were helped by Freeport McMoran that farmed into us, spent $5 million doing some deep drilling, did not find the large porphyry that they were looking for, handed the property back to us. We were in the middle of the 2008 depression. It was difficult to raise money. I was contacted by the Electrum Group, and I knew some of their principals, so it was an easy fit for them to become a shareholder. And it became apparent that we needed more money than we could derive by selling stock at 5 to 10 cents, which is just the market imperative at that time. So we did a deal where they could earn into a 60% interest in the property by spending $5 million US over 5 years. That expenditure took 2 years, at which time we created a significant resource. And Rob's going to tell you about that and then tell you where we can go from here. Over time, it became apparent that Electrum was putting a lot of its energy into its Los Gatos property in Chihuahua that was being operated by Sunshine Silver Mines, an old miner that was revitalized, and Sunshine brought that property into production with the assistance of Doha Group from Japan. They've commissioned the property. They were in production, and then they got shut down by the COVID, and they're looking around for a bit of cash, I would think, to be polite and not to second guess what they're doing. For some time, I was pressing them. Although we're operator, they have a 60%, and so that usually outvotes 40%. And we wanted to do another round of drilling, and we're in the process of completing metallurgical work and on our way to doing a PEA. They wanted to wait and see what the silver markets did. Ultimately, we struck a deal whereby they agreed to sell us their 60% interest. Very favorable terms in my view. There's $15 billion US, payable in a mixture of cash and stock, and payable over a year, and the year runs from the time that we get independent shareholder approval. So we got those timelines in the deck, and I won't go into them at all except to say recently Electrum purchased 9 million shares pursuant to a exercise of a warrant. The cost was $1.35 million, and we utilized that money to pay the down payment, a good faith payment on the agreement. So we're on our way to doing what we want to do, and we believe that the transaction is going to be highly accretive to shareholders. We're not miners, so we're looking for a partner. We're looking for somebody who's brought mines into production and would like to do it again on terms that are favorable to us. We're having discussions, but at the present time, our task is to raise the money to conclude the agreement. And I'm happy to be quiet now and turn this over to Rob, who's going to tell you about what we've achieved and what we intend to achieve. And then I can come back in and respond to questions or have a cleanup. So thanks for listening to us. And now here's Rob.
Hey, thank you very much, Larry. So yes, thank you all for attending. We're going to be talking about the Southern Silver Company, and specifically the flagship project, the Cerro Las Manitas project. And then, yes, we are going to have forward-looking statements, and so yeah, you have to keep in mind that much of what we're going to say is aspirational and to be taken as such. So, with the company and the project, there's three main highlights that we'll be discussing in the presentation today. The main part of the transaction that we're now undertaking is to acquire 100% interest in the flagship Cerro Las Manitas project. This is one of the largest and highest grade undeveloped silver projects in the world, with indicated and inferred resources of 272 million silver equivalent ounces. It's located in a safe and well-established silver mining district within Durango, the mine-friendly Durango state in Mexico. And it's a project where we've had terrific success in exploration. And after the maiden resource, we were able to double the resource to the 272 million silver equivalent ounces at a cash discovery cost of only 7 cents an ounce. And we did that over 3 years. The actual transaction is transformative and it's value creating. We have an agreement with our JV partners to acquire their 60% interest in the project. This is going to be done concurrent with a $7 million financing that will be used to make the down payment on the transaction. The full transaction in cash and shares is $15 million US, with a first tranche of $5 million US and $2 million in shares within that first tranche. And that's what the financing is going to be put toward. What this will result in, currently we have 40% interest, they have 60% interest. So it'll be effectively a purchase of a 150% increase in attributable resources. And then in terms of a net present value, about a 138% increase in the net present value. This is a highly accretive transaction where we're effectively growing organically with the project that adds tremendous value to the project and to the shareholders of Southern Silver. We believe that as we do this and we get further recognition within the market, that we will see a re-rating opportunity within the company. We currently, our post-transaction, we will be trading at about an 80% discount to other silver developers in terms of our shares per ounce, our market price per ounce. And then in terms of the NAV, again, around an 86% discount to other silver developers. And I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. $1 million in cash and shares, which would be at a cost of only 9 cents per ounce silver equivalent. Note that our discovery cost is only 7 cents per ounce, and so this is a small premium to our actual discovery cost. What this does for the Southern Silver shareholder is that it simplifies the ownership structure of the project. It puts the full control of the project in Southern Silver's hands, and we gain a 100% control of a premier polymetallic deposit in Mexico. Again, 150% increase in attributable resources and 138% increase in the net asset value post-transaction. And this is a highly accretive transaction. Electrum still remains a significant shareholder and continues to be supportive in our efforts with the project. We believe that SSV will become a more attractive takeover target, and this will enhance the market profile of the company. So, in a little bit more detail in terms of the transaction, there's a first tranche of $5 million cash and $2 million in shares. 6 months later, a second tranche of $2 million in cash and $2 million in shares, all US currency. And then in 12 months, a third tranche of $2 million in cash and $2 million in shares. We do have the option of paying as much of the share portion in cash as we can. We've announced a concurrent financing, $7 million at a 20-cent price, and the proceeds will go towards the $5 million US cash down payment at closing of the transaction. Electrum has exercised its 9 million warrants at 15 cents a share for proceeds of $1.35 million. That $1.35 million was part of a down payment that we made towards the $2 million in shares that are the component of the initial tranche of the deal. And then the usual details is we require shareholder approval, and we're looking at I think it's September for the closing of the deal and having final shareholder approval of the transaction. And details of the transaction are down at the bottom of the slide. So in terms of the financing, again, we're looking at issuing 35 million subscription receipts at 20 cents, looking to generate $7 million Canadian out of that. There's a half warrant, and in terms of the warrant, it's scaled so that it's a 25 cent. It's at 25 cents for the first year, 30 cents for the second year, and 35 cents for the third year. There's the standard escrow provisions as we close the deal, and the lead agent is Red Cloud, acting as the lead agent and sole book runner. That will be head of any syndicate that we put together as we move the financing forward. So in terms of the capital structure and how this is going to look at the end, the share price is 20 cents. We're doing the financing at 20 cents, and at a 20-cent closing price, we'll have 183 million shares outstanding. This is sort of the warrants. The market capitalization will be around 36 million at that point, and we will be looking at an enterprise value that will increase to 44 million, which will be an increase of a 94% increase in the enterprise value of the company. Electrum will continue to be a significant shareholder and backer of the project as we continue to move forward. So in terms of the metrics across the board, we look at the attributable indicated resources. We're seeing a 150% increase in those resources, up to 272 million silver equivalent ounces in the indicated and inferred categories. The net asset value, this was initially calculated by Red Cloud based on our 40%. So once we get up to 100%, then we're looking at a 138% increase in the net asset value to over 300 million Canadian. The resource value per share is at 149 ounces silver equivalent, and that's an increase of 81%. And then the NAV per share is $1.68, which again is a 72% increase in the NAV per share basic. Enterprise value per the total resource is going to drop, and so it's significantly discounted at it's basically 16 cents per silver equivalent ounce, and the price per NAV again drops around 42% at around 12.12 times. So this is suggesting that an undervaluation and a tremendous opportunity for the Southern Silver shareholder to increase value in the stock. And so, in terms of comparables and looking at the enterprise value per the resource, pre-transaction we're sitting at around 22 cents per silver equivalent ounce. Post-transaction, we drop down to 16 cents, and that really is at the lower end of the comparables, our peer group. So again, we believe there's a significant capacity for a re-rate in this scenario. Similarly, when you look at your price per NAV analysis, we're sitting down well below the average of our peer group within both the silver space and the precious metal space. And again, we believe this presents a tremendous opportunity to the shareholder for a re-rate as we move forward with the transaction and the acquisition of the 100% interest in Cerro Las Manitas. And again, just to highlight, this again is one of the larger and one of the highest grade deposits under development that's out there. And you can see at 272 million silver equivalent ounces, we sit very, very comfortably within the top 10 of these development projects that are out there. And then at the grade, we are the highest grade of those projects within that top 5, top 10 grouping. So this is a fantastic deposit, and again, an excellent opportunity for the investor. To get a little bit more into the company and then into the Cerro Las Manitas project itself, in terms of the management team and the board, once you review that, you see a number of people involved with the company on both the executive and the board level that have been involved with the identification and discovery, the development of major world-class deposits and mines, and then people that have been involved with moving those mines on to either a senior partner or bringing those mines into production. And these, could be, for example, the Peñasquito project in Mexico, San Nicolas deposit in Mexico, Escape Creek and the Hemlo deposits in Canada, as well as the San Cristobal project in Argentina. And so again, it's a group of people that know what major projects look like, know how to develop them, and know how to move them on for the benefit of the shareholder. In terms of the project itself, or the company itself, we have two projects within the company. The Oro project is an earlier stage project in southern New Mexico. It's 100% owned. It's a large laramide porphyry system, and I will look at that a little bit later in the presentation, but in effect, we're looking for a partner to do some of the heavier lifting on that project, and it's not really a focus of what we're looking at today. The flagship of the company is Cerro Las Menitas. It's located in Durango, Mexico, in the heart of the Faja de Plata, surrounded by major mineral deposits, world-class deposits in Peñasquito, San Martin, Pitarrilla, the Fresnillo district, a little bit further to the southeast. And so, following the transaction, we will have a 100% interest in the Cerro Las Menitas project. We continue to advance this project towards polymetallic production. It's silver, zinc, and lead, with an excellent team behind us. We've spent $18.5 million on acquisition and exploration since 2011, and we have new targeting that we believe can increase the resource upwards of around 30%. And I will get into that a little bit later in the presentation. The next resource milestone, therefore, would be to grow the resource from the 272 million ounces that we have currently to 350 million silver equivalent ounces. That's the resource growth profile that we see and that we believe that we can achieve by further exploration on the project. We continue to de-risk the project through metallurgical and engineering studies. And again, I'll review that a little bit later in the presentation. So Cerro Las Menitas, located in the heart of the Faja de Plata. It's also located on the edge of the Altiplano in central Mexico. So we're out of the mountains. We're out in the plains, the high plains of Mexico. It's a very safe jurisdiction where, as I like to joke, we're in the middle of the bean fields, not the marijuana fields. And there's no issues with narcos in the area. And again, it's a very supportive local people, the local ejido, as well as the state authorities are very supportive of the initiatives that we have going on the project. We have our exploration access agreements in place, as well as our permits with the state authorities, our exploration permits with the state authorities. We continue to expand the project, acquiring now not only having the polymetallic skarn CRD type system where we have our resources, but now looking as well at potential epithermal deposits located to the west of the area of the Cerro where we have our current resource. We currently have 133 drill holes in the project for just under 60,000 meters. We've spent $18.5 million in exploration and acquisition on the project to date. Our discovery cost is 7 cents an ounce silver equivalents, or half a penny a pound zinc equivalent. So we've been very effective with our exploration on the project. We've been able to grow the resource very significantly over the last 3-4 years, and we look forward to further exploration on the project that looks to add another 30% resource onto our current 272 million ounces. This is the claim position. This is a very mature mining and exploration district. We're surrounded by major players on all sides. We have Hecla's San Sebastian project on the east. We have Corp Mining's La Preciosa project to the west. Fresnillo owns a major exploration claim, El Titanic, on our northern boundary. The Avino project, the Avino gold silver mine, is operating just about 5-6 kilometers northwest of our claim position. And a little bit further afield, Argonaut Gold is mining at El Castillo and San Agustin. This is again a very mature mining district, and the property itself is 345, so it's a large property package, 345 square kilometers in two main pieces, the larger piece down here, and then this smaller piece where we have our current mineral resource located up in the northern part of the claims. Again, we hire locally, we work locally. We have our agreements in place with the local ejido, as well as our permits with the state authorities. We operate out of the town of Guadalupe, Victoria, and have very good relations with the local peoples in our operations. And again, with the state authorities, we've met with the governor on 3-4 occasions, and as well with the Minister of the Economy, Ramon Davila. This is the area of the Cerro where we have our resources. We're located just 70 kilometers outside of Durango with a 4-lane highway that runs right through the property, power lines going down to Durango running right through the property, a rail line running immediately south of the town of Guadalupe, Victoria, which acts as our base of operations. It's only a 5-minute drive to the south of Cerro Las Menitas, and you access it from the south along this overpass, which cuts across the autopista, which runs right through the property. In the foreground, you see one of the aforementioned bean fields, and then this is the actual Cerro. It's a bit of a horseshoe shaped with a central intrusion in here. You can see that sort of rusty color in there. That's a little bit more recessive central intrusion, and a zone of alteration of skarn and hornfels alteration that wrap around the central intrusion. You can see roads and areas of disturbance in there. This is some of the old artisanal mining. We're at La Bacona, and then over on this side at Santo Niño and Piero Corazon, where there has been extensive artisanal development, some extending down 200 meters below surface. The artisanal workings have been going on for several decades, and maybe intermittently at around 50 to 100 ton per day operations, small operations. So what we ended up consolidating all of this ground, doing geophysics over the Cerro. We identified some geophysical targets out to the west at the Blind El Sol Las Victorias zones. We started drilling there, identified mineralization there, and that became our discovery early on in the project. As we drilled deeper on the Blind El Sol Las Victorias zone, we drilled into mineralization in the skarn-altered halo around the central intrusion, and we're able to follow that up into what we call now the skarn front zone. On a geological map, there's a central intrusion. You can see that in magenta in the center. The zone of alteration around that in green is the skarn and hornfels zone. You'll also see these little half-filled squares, and that's the areas of artisanal mining that have gone on for a number of decades, and some suggest back to colonial times in this area. Highlighted in red and shaded in yellow is the surface projection of the mineral deposits that we have discovered to date. And these are the Blind El Sol and Las Victorias zones, as well as the skarn front zone of mineralization. And so stylistically, in a cross-section, schematically, we show a central intrusive neck, and that's in this sort of pinkish color zone of alteration around that. with zones of red in there representing zones of mineralization. Historic mining has been at the edges of this intrusive neck, and then we identified the blind El Sol and Las Victorias zones of mineralization associated with a dike swarm off to the west of the intrusive neck. At depth, there we have the skarn front zone of mineralization. And I'd just like to highlight here, you'd note that in terms of the distribution of mineralization, that there's over 200 million of the 272 million silver equivalent ounces is located within the skarn front zone of mineralization. This is a large skarn deposit. It's similar to what's seen at the San Martin, La Paria mines, the Valardenia mine, which is located just around 100 kilometers to the northeast along the highway from the Cerro. These are fairly classic skarn CRD type systems that occur throughout the Fajada Plata of northern Mexico. So we have all the elements that you need for the development of the mine, for discovery and continued development of the project. A breakdown of the mineral resources. The main thing to take away here is the total resources, 23.9, so 24 million tons of resources, 272 million silver equivalent ounces. It breaks down into about 85 million ounces of silver and then 2.2 billion pounds of combined lead and zinc. You'll note that of the 24 million tons of the resource, around 18 million tons are hosted in the skarn front deposit, and this also tends to be some of the highest grade mineralization of the deposits that have been identified at Cerro Las Menitas. This has been our focus for much of the last 3 years of exploration, and it will continue to be our main focus in further exploration on the project. This is a block model of the skarn front deposit, and again, the main things to take away here is that it projects near surface to within tens of meters of surface down to over a kilometer in the copper deep area on the lower right-hand side of the graphic. The red zones are greater than 500 gram silver equivalent mineralization. The magenta zones greater than 1,000 gram silver equivalent mineralization. And you can see a good continuity of the reds and the magentas throughout the block model, with some higher grade mineralization projecting within tens of meters of surface. So we're seeing widespread mineralization. We're seeing thick zones of mineralization that can be mined by bulk mining underground methods. You're also seeing good continuity of mineralization, the high grade mineralization within the block model. Again, all the things that you need to bring a project like this into production. We look forward to, we have been very effective in our resource expansion over the next couple of years, the previous 2-3 years, and believe that we have the plan to continue expanding these resources in the coming exploration that we do on the project. So again, going back to the plan view of the geology. Again, to highlight, outlined in red and shaded in yellow is the surface projection of the mineralization in the area of the Cerro. This is all located on the western side of the central intrusion. We see some potential to extend mineralization a further 200 to 250 meters to the southeast, but we see the bigger potential on the east side of the central intrusion. And here we have a couple of areas called the South Skarn and the Mina Lavacona areas, and we've had about 15 to 20 drill holes that have already tested these areas. And we have hit high-grade mineralization, sometimes very high-grade silver mineralization within these target areas. And so the idea here is to move over onto the eastern side of the central intrusion and step out from known zones of high-grade mineralization and build resources in that way. And in that way, we believe that we can take the mineral resource from 24 million tons add another 6, 7, 8 million tons onto that, so get it up over 30 million tons of resource, and build the resource toward our next milestone, our next target, exploration target of 350 million silver equivalent ounces. So that's basically the plan moving forward. We also have some other areas that are earlier stage, so it's not the only area. The area of the Cerro is not the only area that we believe that we can expand and develop resources. You'll see up in the northern part of this graphic, the area of the Cerro, that's where we have the current mineral resources, about 10 to 15 kilometers to the southwest. We've identified new structures and new targeting in this area. This is an area where you move from the area of the Cerro where you have an upthrown block of older Cretaceous sedimentary rocks that host the skarn and CRD styled mineralization here, and you move into younger tertiary age volcanic rocks. These tertiary age volcanic rocks are similar to the rocks that host the Avino project, veins at Avino, located about 5 kilometers to the northwest, as well as the La Preciosa deposit. That's a Corp Mining's project located about 20 kilometers to the west of this area. So this is a new type of targeting area, much earlier stage, but we have had some drilling in here. We've identified some higher grade silver mineralization and some very high grade pathfinder mineralization. And the sense is that we're still a little bit too high in this epithermal system, as evidenced by the strongly anomalous arsenic and antimony in the returns from drilling. We believe that we're maybe 100, 200 meters above where you want to be, where we want to get precious metals, and that there is additional drilling that can be done on this area. But right now, the focus remains the area of the Cerro and continuing to systematically expand the resource. In terms of other avenues to de-risk the project for the investor, we've done a significant and advanced metallurgical test work that has successfully been able to separate saleable copper, lead, and zinc concentrates from both the skarn front and the blind L salt composites. The latest test results, particularly from the skarn front, were lock cycle metallurgical test work that was able to identify a very high grade lead concentrate with the grades coming out at over 65% lead and 5,500 gram per ton silver within that concentrate. It becomes a very high grade concentrate. Our back of the envelope NSR calculations on this have this coming in at over $3,000 a ton. For that mineralization. We've had exceptional recoveries in our zinc concentrate with 94.7% recovery of zinc at a 54% grade. So it's a very, very clean zinc concentrate with a low amount of silver in there. With being able to successfully get silver into the lead concentrate as well as in the copper concentrates where you get maximum value for your silver mineralization in those concentrates. We've been able to effectively remove the low amount of copper that can occur, particularly within the skarn front zone, and being able to recover about 60% of that copper. Again, a bit of silver mineralization in there, and so we're getting good grade copper concentrate, so with some excellent silver mineralization in there, making it a very saleable and very desirable concentrate. So all in all, we're coming in at well over 80% recoveries of lead, well over 80% recoveries of silver into the lead and the copper concentrates, just under 95% recovery of our zinc concentrates. So it's been very, very successful work and locked cycle work that is that gives us tremendous confidence in moving things forward. And so very quickly now, I want to switch gears a little bit to the Oro property. It's located in southern New Mexico. It's a large porphyry system. We're right at the top of what appears to be a major porphyry system. broad areas of alteration, including around a 6 square kilometer zone of strong phyllic alteration. That is the main target for a copper, moly, plus minus gold porphyry system. There's around a 3 kilometer zone of zoning, metal zoning in the system, with a central core of copper moly, moving outboard to lead, zinc, silver, and then further outboard to a distal gold target. Again, this is a very, very large area, probably a little bit earlier stage. And so what we did was that we flew with a VTEM survey, identified some additional targeting that we can follow up on, both in mag survey on the left, and then a conductivity survey on the right, giving us new targeting. And again, we're looking for a partner to come in and do some of the heavier lifting on that project. So just to take it all back now, why Southern Silver? We believe that we've got a transformative, value-creating transaction with Electrum that creates an attractive entry point for the investors. The actual project, Cerro Las Meninas, the flagship project, is one of the largest and highest grade undeveloped silver projects in the world, and this is a fantastic opportunity to get 100% of that. And because of that, we believe that there's a re-rating opportunity, and as well as near-term exploration that can grow the resource and increase the shareholder value quite significantly. And so that's really it for me. Thank you very much, and just leave you with a shot of the bean fields. It's an excellent area to work. And then some of the small scale development located in the area of the Cerro. And here we are, just right up on the alteration rim of the central intrusion. And this is really where all the action is, with some of our deposits extending out down into this flat area just downslope from the main Cerro. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll have Larry come in for a minute.
Well, Rob did it. He managed to tell you the story. One thing he didn't tell you was one thing that's interested me is, because it's a polymetallic project. He's always happy to say that the value of the zinc and the lead pays for the mining costs of the silver, and so we'll see if that's attractive to a miner when we get around to talking. So that's where we are. The summer is going to be very interesting for us. We expect that as we get into the late summer, we'll have this tied up, paid for, at least the first tranche. And one thing we haven't said is we've got about $3.7 million in the treasury. It's uncommitted. There's some warrants that are in the money. So we're not struggling for money. What we're doing is, with Red Cloud, we sized this financing to allow us to get the first tranche under our belt, and that gives us some time going into the balance of the calendar year to complete the transaction. So both of us are standing by, happy to respond to any questions. And Jacob, over to you.
Thank you, Larry. Let's start with a question asking about the importance of the quality of the concentrates and what it means from a value per ton opportunity, and if there's still opportunities to improve and optimize the recoveries.
If I answered that, I'd be giving you some dad facts, so I'm going to exit stage left and bring Rob in.
We believe, yes, it is important to maximize the value of the concentrates. The whole process was fairly involved, and a lot of it involved getting the copper out of the subsequent concentrates, the lead and the zinc, and we think we've done that quite effectively for the Skarn Front deposit. There's probably a bit more work that, well, not even probably about it. There's a little bit more work that we want to do on the blind El Sol zones to help maximize those. And that was initial work was batch test work, and it had some very good results. I think it was 52% grade of zinc over 54%, over 50% recovery. So it was all very good work. But there's a bit more work that we can do to see if we can get some of the gold out of that system, and that may be important because in two of the near surface areas, the Las Victorias area and this new area that we want to test or continue testing at Mina La Bacona, there is some gold credits in the drilling, and so at this point we're sort of, in terms of our NSR calculations, we kind of discount some of that gold mineralization, or we do discount that gold mineralization. So there's a bit more work that we'd want to do in that. In terms of the ultimate value, on the gross value of the deposit, it's not that much. But if it's where you're going to start off mining, you want to get every single dollar out of that, because that helps pay down any capital costs that you may have. So that's the main thing that we would like to do. The lock cycle test work was done on a composite of 200 kilograms of material. It was fairly representative of our drilling to date. However, as you start moving towards into feasibility, you are going to have to do more rigorous metallurgical work. But the main thing that's on my radar right now is get the gold, get the gold, get the gold.
Okay. Another question asking about your drill program for this year, where you talked about going after some high grade hits that you've had in the past. Can you tell us a bit about some of those grades and what you expect to come from that drill program?
Yes, and again, that's going back a little bit to here. Let me. Do I have that here? That's going back a little bit to the Mina La Bacona area. Again, there was some quite very high grade mineralization. You were seeing some of that 1,000-gram silver equivalent. Some of these intercepts being 3 to 5 to 8 meters with 300 to 500 gram silver alone, and so. At this point, we didn't have enough drilling in there to tie in the mineral resources, but we feel that if you can add even as little as 1 to 2 million tons of material of that grade, at 300 grams silver, there's 10 ounces. You just add another 20 million ounces of silver to the project, and that takes us from 83 to 85 million silver ounces. Total resources to up over 100, which appears to be a milestone now in terms of silver content of the deposit. So that is becoming a focus. We do have some other intercepts that, again, sort of on that 3 to 5 to 8 meter thick zones of mineralization, where you are getting 300 gram, 500 gram silver equivalent, and these are the areas that we want to be stepping off and building that into the resource.
Great. There's a question here just asking if you could talk about how buying out the remaining 60% of the deposit will enhance the market profile of the company. I have an opinion on this, but I'll let you answer.
Do you want to cover that, or do you want to? Okay. Well, a lot of it, I think, comes back to just the resource. And it also comes back, I think, a little bit to the situation that we were in as a junior partner in a joint venture. So we weren't fully in control of our own timeline. We weren't fully in control of our own destiny. We will say that Electrum did a fantastic job in terms of growing the resource. It was sort of their initial investment and continued investment that allowed us to get our maiden resource, build that.
I think we might have lost Robert just for a second there. Looks like he's joining back in.
There we go. Sorry about that. I actually hit the mouse and it took me right off. I apologize.
No worries.
So I wasn't trying to dodge the question, but we think that it's not only the resource growth that we have, and that we believe we're undervalued based on the resources that we have, but it's also being in control of our own destiny, and it's also being the projection to being able to grow this resource and continued resource growth in the project. So it's really sort of like a triple header here. It's three main points in terms of getting the value back up into the into the project. So yeah, we're very, very excited. Again, being in control of our own destiny and being able to move this project forward on our own timeline. And it's very exciting for ourselves, and we believe the shareholders of Southern Silver.
A further follow-up to that that's been asked is, what is it about the timing now that has led to this opportunity to transact here? Is it something that you initiated with Electrum, or did they suggest it to you?
When Rob said that Electrum had helped very much in moving the project forward, they're great partners because they allowed us to be operator, although we had a 40% working interest. They gave us money over 2 years instead of 5 years. But they've got a lot of other things in their portfolio. They had other fish to fry, and so they basically left us alone. But when we wanted to move the project to the next phase with doing the next 10,000 meters or so of drilling, and we really like adding those potential ounces that are over to in the Bacona area, for reasons that they haven't really explained to us. They said, well, the metal will be there next year. We've got other priorities right now, so let's just wait. Well, that's a death knell for a junior like us, is just sitting on an asset not doing anything. So I just kept niggling at them and said, well, they gave me a price, and I said, well, no, what about this price? And we came to terms reasonably quickly, and they accommodated us over some time, and they accommodated us with a mixture of cash and stock. And they're a 32% shareholder. It's a little higher now because they took that 9 million warrant shares down. They said, good luck, make a mine out of this. One thing about being a junior, you're either completing a financing or you're starting a financing, and you're hustling. And we've gone to a lot of seminars, etc., and spoken to a lot of people, and they say, well, when you're in charge, so you can really talk about the project, come and see us. Well, we did. We're here, and we'll gauge what the transaction is. So we believe we're at a situation now where we're not miners. We don't intend to bring a lot of staff on and become miners. We'll get to the stage where we'll entertain discussions with people who are, and see what is the best thing that we can do for our shareholders, whether it's a takeover, whether it's a joint venture, whether it's putting up the CapEx to take the thing to a bankable feasibility. I don't know, but we've done it before, and we certainly intend to make some money on Southern Silver, and the shareholders will make money with us.
Thanks. That's a very thorough answer. I think we'll wrap it up here as we're getting close to an hour in length, and I know that people have other meetings to attend to. I'd just like to thank everybody, as well as Lawrence and Robert, for participating. And I'll just remind people that our next webinar is tomorrow at 2 p.m. with McEwen Mining. And we'll include Rob McEwen, Chairman, Peter Moss, COO, and Sylvain Gerard, VP Exploration, and will be hosted by Andrew Kite, Managing Director of Equity Research from Red Cloud Securities. So once again, thank you both for your time, and congratulations on the exciting transaction that you have.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you, Jacob.
Great. Bye for now.